9-year-old Ethan had always disliked being alone, especially in their old house at the end of Chestnut Street. Tonight, his parents were forced to leave town abruptly due to an urgent family emergency, promising to return by morning. As darkness settled outside, Ethan found himself completely alone. Initially, he distracted himself with cartoons, their bright, cheerful colors chasing away his unease. But soon, shadows began dancing strangely on the walls, twisting into odd shapes, creating silhouettes of figures he didn't recognize. Ethan muted the TV, listening carefully. Silence. He convinced himself it was just his imagination, until a sudden, undeniable creak echoed from upstairs. He froze, heart pounding. "Mum? Dad?" he called weakly. No answer. Gathering courage, Ethan grabbed his flashlight from the drawer, its reassuring weight calming his trembling hands slightly. Cautiously, he climbed the staircase, each step groaning softly beneath his feet. The hallway was eerily quiet, illuminated dimly by the moonlight filtering through the window. Approaching his bedroom, he noticed the door slightly ajar, despite clearly remembering that he'd closed it earlier. Slowly, hesitantly, he pushed the door open further. Everything appeared normal at first glance, yet an unnatural chill permeated the room, sending shivers down his spine. Suddenly, Ethan heard a soft giggle coming from the direction of his closet. "Who's there?" Ethan's voice shook as he directed the flashlight beam toward the closet door. The giggling ceased abruptly, replaced by a slow, raspy breathing that filled the room. The closet door creaked open slowly, revealing nothing but darkness inside. Ethan felt paralyzed, panic surging through his body. "Ethan, play," whispered a voice, childlike yet disturbingly distorted. Ethan sprinted from his room, racing downstairs to the kitchen. His trembling hands frantically grabbed the cordless phone, dialing his parents' number, only to be met by static. The line was dead. As panic rose within him, the lights throughout the house flickered violently, plunging everything into momentary darkness before flickering back to life, now dimmer, colder. Upstairs, footsteps began pacing deliberately, heavy and methodical. Desperately, Ethan hid beneath the kitchen table, pulling his knees close to his chest, heart thudding violently. The footsteps halted abruptly at the top of the stairs. After an agonizing silence, they began descending, one slow creak at a time, echoing ominously in Ethan's ears. From his hiding spot, Ethan glimpsed shadowy feet pausing at the bottom step. The figure stood still, its heavy breathing growing louder. "Ethan, don't hide," it rasped softly, almost tenderly. Ethan bit his lip, tears streaming silently down his face. Without warning, kitchen cabinets began opening and slamming shut violently, dishes flying from shelves and shattering loudly upon impact. The chaos was overwhelming, deafening. Covering his ears, Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, praying desperately for it to stop. Abruptly, the chaos ceased, leaving a suffocating silence behind. Cautiously, he opened his eyes, noticing the shadowy figure had vanished. Exhausted and trembling, Ethan slowly emerged from under the table. He stood shakily, only to feel a chilling breath against the back of his neck and hear a cold whisper, "Found you." Ethan screamed, spinning around to face empty air. Panicking, he backed away, stumbling into an invisible presence behind him. Ice-cold hands gripped his shoulders firmly, sending chills down his spine. He struggled free and bolted toward the living room, collapsing onto the sofa in terrified exhaustion. Just then, the front door rattled violently, something pounding furiously from outside. Ethan watched in horror as the doorknob twisted back and forth rapidly, then suddenly stopped. The oppressive silence returned, heavier than ever. Through the long, torturous hours of the night, the house seemed alive, tormenting Ethan with faint whispers, soft laughter, and fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures watching him. Each minute felt like an eternity. As dawn finally approached, the disturbances gradually ceased, leaving Ethan drained and nearly catatonic from fear. When his parents finally arrived home at sunrise, they found Ethan huddled, wide-eyed and pale, wrapped tightly in a blanket, whispering incoherently about the voices and shadows. Though the night had passed, Ethan knew deep within his heart the chilling truth. Whatever entity haunted their house was still there, waiting patiently, biding its time. And Ethan realized, with a sinking dread, that the next time his parents left him alone, the entity wouldn't merely torment him, it would claim him entirely. Laura and Mark had dreamed of starting a family for years, and when their daughter Emma was born, their joy was overwhelming. Soon after, they moved into a charming old Victorian house on Maple Street, believing it would be the perfect place to raise their little girl. Initially, everything seemed ideal until subtle disturbances began. Lights flickered inexplicably, cold spots appeared throughout the home, and Emma would stare and giggle at seemingly empty corners. Mark dismissed these events as quirks of an older house, but Laura felt increasingly uneasy. One evening, Laura woke suddenly, certain she'd heard soft footsteps moving just beyond their bedroom door. Terrified, she nudged Mark awake. After investigating, he found nothing unusual and reassured her gently. Yet uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Days passed, and the incidents intensified. Objects vanished and reappeared in strange places. Whispers echoed in empty hallways, often mimicking their voices. Laura became convinced they weren't alone. Mark, initially skeptical, changed his mind one night when a framed family photo shattered violently without cause, glass shards scattering across the living room floor. Terrified for their safety, the couple decided to leave immediately. However, as Mark reached for the front door, a powerful, unseen force slammed it shut, refusing to budge no matter how much they pushed or pulled. Windows inexplicably locked themselves shut, becoming immovable barriers. Each attempt to escape ended similarly, doors and windows defying logic, keeping them captive. Their phones mysteriously lost signal, and the landline was silent, disconnected from the outside world. One chilling evening, Mark awoke suddenly to the frantic cries of Emma coming from her room. Heart racing, he dashed upstairs, finding the nursery empty. Panic surged until he saw her crib gently rocking on its own. Emma was nowhere in sight. "Laura! Emma's gone!" Mark shouted desperately. Both parents searched the house frantically until Laura found Emma unharmed, quietly sitting in the attic, calmly playing with an old porcelain doll they'd never seen before. Emma pointed cheerfully to an empty rocking chair nearby, laughing as if someone unseen sat there with her. "She belongs here," a cold whisper brushed past Laura's ear. She spun around, seeing no one. Days dragged by, each hour filled with escalating horrors. Sleep became impossible, tension growing unbearable. Mark discovered ancient hidden journals beneath floorboards in the attic, belonging to previous inhabitants. Each entry detailed the same terrifying experiences, concluding abruptly, as if their authors had suddenly vanished without trace. Realizing they had little choice, the couple attempted another desperate escape. This time, the front door swung open easily, but as they stepped onto the porch, reality twisted horrifically. They were instantly back inside the living room. Again and again they tried, each attempt leading them deeper into despair. Driven to exhaustion, they barricaded themselves in the bedroom, holding Emma protectively between them. Shadows gathered heavily outside their door, whispering relentlessly, growing louder and more violent until the bedroom door burst open, revealing a dark figure standing at the threshold. Its appearance shifted continuously, taking grotesque forms, a monstrous blend of anguish and anger. "She stays," it growled menacingly. "You must leave." "Not without our daughter," Mark shouted, shielding Emma fiercely. "She was mine first," the entity shrieked, the voice echoing painfully through the house. Laura remembered the old journals they'd discovered in the basement, recalling one particularly tragic entry. A mother who had lost her child, driven mad by grief, and eventually taking her own life in this very house. Realizing what they faced, Laura stepped forward, confronting the spirit directly. "Your suffering ends here. You cannot take our daughter." The room trembled violently, walls cracking, paint peeling. Furniture rose into the air, swirling dangerously around them. Laura and Mark held Emma tightly, their love and determination forming an invisible shield against the entity's furious assault. "Leave this place," Laura demanded, her voice firm, tears of fear and defiance streaming down her cheeks. A piercing scream filled the house, echoing endlessly before fading into anguished silence. Slowly, the chaos ceased. Furniture crashed to the ground, and the oppressive presence vanished as swiftly as it had appeared. Doors creaked open gently. The house felt lighter, freed from the malicious grip. Seizing the opportunity, the family fled into the safety of the brightening dawn outside. As they stepped beyond the threshold, they felt an invisible weight lift from their shoulders. Looking back, Laura saw a faint silhouette in an upstairs window, watching them silently, a final bitter farewell from the entity trapped within. Though they never returned to the cursed house, the haunting memories never left them. Laura and Mark understood the truth. Some places are best left undisturbed. Some doors should remain unopened, and some shadows, no matter how distant, never truly fade. Blackridge Asylum loomed ominously atop the misty hill, its shattered windows like empty eye sockets gazing malevolently at the world below. For decades, locals whispered of cruel experiments conducted within its walls, and of a patient named Eleanor Blackwell, whose tragic death left behind an angry, restless spirit. Her wrathful presence was rumoured to ensnare anyone foolish enough to wander near, their fates sealed by agonising deaths, their bodies never found. Tonight, curiosity had drawn 4 friends, Sophie, Ryan, Alex and Megan, to this cursed place. The stories had always intrigued them, and despite warnings, they felt compelled to uncover the truth. As they approached, the rusted gates groaned open without a touch, inviting them inside. An unnatural chill enveloped the air, raising goosebumps across their skin. Still, they stepped forward, drawn inexorably into the shadows of the asylum. "Feels wrong here," Megan whispered nervously, wrapping her arms around herself. "Relax," Ryan said, feigning confidence. "They're just stories." Inside, the asylum seemed alive with malicious intent. Shadows flickered at the edges of their vision, and faint whispers drifted from unseen corners. unintelligible, yet disturbingly clear in their menace. "Did you hear that?" Sophie asked suddenly, eyes wide with fear. "Hear what?" Alex responded, visibly shaken. "Someone whispering my name," she breathed, glancing around anxiously. Suddenly, a distant door slammed violently, echoing through the empty halls. Ryan jumped, his bravado instantly evaporating. "Maybe we shouldn't be here." But before they could retreat, another door burst open, revealing a corridor bathed in pale moonlight. At the far end stood a shadowy figure, translucent yet vividly real, eyes burning with an intense fury. It was Eleanor. "You came for me," the ghostly voice hissed, chilling their blood. "Now, you'll stay forever." Terrified, the group scattered, fleeing blindly through twisted corridors. Sophie and Alex ducked into what appeared to be a patient room, slamming the door behind them. They realized too late that the walls were moving, slowly shrinking the room. Panic surged through them as they pounded desperately against the cold concrete. "It's closing in!" Alex screamed, feeling the crushing weight as the walls pressed tighter. Sophie cried out in terror, trapped as the space narrowed relentlessly. Darkness swallowed their screams, leaving only silence. Ryan and Megan heard their friends' cries vanish and ran frantically in the opposite direction. Ryan stumbled, dropping his flashlight, plunging them into near-total darkness. "Ryan, hurry!" Megan cried, gripping his arm desperately. "I'm trying!" he gasped, scrambling back up, but an unseen force violently tore him from Megan's grip, dragging him screaming into the abyss. His cries echoed painfully, then abruptly ceased. Megan was alone. She staggered forward blindly, heart pounding. Ahead, a faint glow appeared. Driven by desperation, she moved toward it, finding herself in an ancient operating room, its surfaces stained from countless horrors. Rusty instruments lay ominously arranged beside the table, which still bore dark, dried blood. "I've waited so long," Eleanor's cold voice whispered. Megan turned, frozen with terror as Eleanor materialized fully. The ghostly woman's face twisted in anguish and rage. "What do you want?" Megan whimpered, tears streaming down her face. "Retribution," Eleanor answered, pointing at the table. "Lie down." Megan shook her head wildly, backing away, but chains rattled to life, snaking around her limbs and dragging her to the table. Eleanor stood over her, eyes blazing with hate. Megan pleaded desperately as the spectral figure leaned closer. "Why are you doing this?" she sobbed. Eleanor's eyes softened briefly, replaced quickly by renewed fury. "Because no one listened when I cried for help." Suddenly, Megan's vision filled with vivid, horrifying memories, scenes of Eleanor's torment at the hands of sadistic doctors, procedures performed without mercy, her final moments of despair. Megan experienced the agony firsthand, her own screams blending with those of countless victims. In the living room above, Ryan awoke, gasping for air. He wasn't dead yet, but trapped within an impossible maze of corridors, rooms shifting, defying logic. Everywhere he turned, Eleanor's angry voice taunted him, leading him endlessly back to the same starting point. "You cannot escape," her voice echoed mockingly. Despair overtook him as he realized the asylum itself was alive, feeding off their fear, and Eleanor was merely its vessel of vengeance. Ryan collapsed onto the cold floor, surrendering to the darkness that swiftly engulfed him. Weeks later, search teams scoured every room of Blackridge Asylum, finding nothing except eerie silence and unsettling coldness. All 4 friends were officially listed as missing, their fates forever a mystery to the outside world. Yet, for those who dared approach Blackridge, shadows still moved silently behind shattered windows, mournful whispers echoed faintly, and Eleanor Blackwell's wrathful spirit patiently awaited its next victims, forever trapped, forever hunting within the asylum's cursed walls.